All right, you guys. So today we are talking about perfectionism. Yes. And before you say, you know what, I don't suffer from perfectionism, or yes, I'm aware of perfectionism in my life, I need you to listen up because you probably don't know to what degree it may be affecting you if you are aware of it, or if you feel like you don't suffer from perfectionism, you will probably realize that there are some things after listening to today's podcast that, yes, I actually do have a little bit, or maybe even a lot of perfectionism that is preventing your progress, stunting your growth in both your work and life. We're going to be breaking that down today on Elite Performance with Dr. Brad. And as always, I am your host of the podcast and performance coach, Dr. Brad. And what I do is I help high achieving men be able to develop clarity and consistency so that they can succeed in their work or career or business without sacrificing their fitness, their family, and their faith. And so, as always, I want to make sure that you share this live stream if you're watching this live, or you can share this episode if you're listening to it with someone else that you believe this will help. Before I dive in today, for those of you who are listening to this episode as it has dropped, and I believe today I'm recording this on June the 9th. If you listen to this podcast after June 21st, this does not apply to you. But for those of you who are listening to this before June 21st, I'm going to be hosting a masterclass for men that is coming up. It is a 2-hour masterclass called The Formula for Breakthrough and Accelerated Growth. And in that masterclass, I'm going to be breaking down the 3 common behaviors that prevent men from being able to win at a high level in their health, wealth, and relationships, and also sharing the formula that can overcome those 3 behaviors so that you can break through, get unstuck, and experience accelerated growth in your health, wealth, or relationships, or as I sometimes like to say, put fuel behind your fitness, your family, and your finances. I'm going to be, so you can register at drbradmd.com/masterclass. Again, that's drbradmd.com/masterclass. There's limited seats available. As I just like to work with a small group of men during these masterclasses. It will be extraordinary. The last couple ones that we've done have been awesome, but I never mentioned it on the podcast. So for those of you who are listening to the freshly uploaded episode and before July 21st, again, just make sure that you register for that masterclass, and I'll provide a ton of value for you. And I'm just going to give you the game. Now, for those of you who are listening to this after the 21st, forget everything I just talked about. All right. But today we're going to be talking about perfectionism. This is something that I have struggled with in my past. This is something that I still have to kind of have some accountability with, to make sure that perfectionism is not spilling over into different aspects of my life and slowing down my progress. And the reason this was something that I wanted to discuss was because one of my coaching clients in a group coaching that I have mentioned that one of the things that he was struggling with was his attempt to try and overcome perfectionism by taking what he described as massive imperfect action. I think he watched a YouTube video on someone who was saying, listen, you have to take massive imperfect action. You got to take it now. He knew he suffers from a little bit of this perfectionism, wanting to get everything perfect, might be kind of slowing him down in his business. And what he's noticed is that as a result of this massive imperfect action, like, yes, he's taking action, but like it's causing a lot of anxiety for him. It's causing him to lose sleep in his business. And so even though he's taking action, it's kind of coming at too great of a cost. And so I understand taking massive, imperfect action, but part of the issue of trying to just take massive imperfect action to overcome perfectionism is that it really doesn't deal with the underlying root cause. The answer for perfectionism is not to just start taking action, because that's trying to implement a method on something that is a mindset issue, and you can never resolve a behavior issue without dealing with the underlying belief. Again, all of our behaviors are manifestations or expressions of these underlying beliefs, and if we just try to resolve perfectionism by saying I'm just going to take this massive imperfect action, it will not last, and it will probably cause you more harm than good. And so we're going to be breaking that down today. And so our challenge overall as individuals who are trying to win at a high level, and particularly in our businesses, we're trying to provide a ton of high quality, high value in our business and career, right? High quality, high value for people. But unfortunately, in our attempt to do that, many of us will suffer from perfectionism, working too hard to try to be perfect, right? One of the ways I look at perfectionism is, focusing on the small part that wasn't perfect. 98% of the work could be extraordinary, but you focus on the part that was not good and define the outcome or experience, or define the work, or define yourself by the 2% that wasn't good, right? I mean, think about that. So this isn't like, it's all about perspective, but it isn't, the cup is half empty or the cup is half full. Oftentimes the work is done at an extraordinary level, but even though 2% of it may not have been great, we define ourselves by the 2% that wasn't great instead of the 90% that was. Right. We end up seeing all the bad despite all of the good that's been done. We see the bad, but don't celebrate the good, in essence, is what perfectionism is. And there's a difference between perfectionism and holding a high standard of excellence. Those are really two different things in my opinion. Now, some people may feel like they're saying, it's a high standard of excellence is what they're doing. But in my opinion, the way I define those two things separately is that perfectionism is when someone is saying it's not perfect. Therefore, because it's not perfect, it's not good, it's not ready, it's not worthy. Okay? It's not good, it's not ready, it's not worthy because it's not perfect. And so perfectionism is actually based on imperfection. Perfectionism is defined by imperfection and beats you down. However, a high standard of excellence says, listen, we know who we are. I know who I am, right? We know what kind of work we do, and that work is at a high standard. And who we are and our work is defined by a high standard. So we know we are great. And there's built-in accountability in place to say, hey, listen, this is who we are. We are great. We are awesome. This is the standard, right? And so that's based on identity instead of based on imperfection. Yes, there may be some things that are not perfect whenever you have a high standard of excellence, whenever you're trying to attempt to achieve something, but you still see yourself as, we're great, this is our standard. We may have missed the mark a little bit, but the standard is here to hold ourselves accountable to continue to try to reach this, not focusing on the little piece that didn't get done and defining ourselves by the little part that did not get done to a certain degree of however we want to define, perfect or whatever. So perfectionism is based on imperfection, defining yourself on imperfection. Standard of excellence is based on defining your identity as great and excellent. Perfectionism beats you down. Standard of excellence builds you up. So that's the difference. We want to have a high standard of excellence in our lives for our work. We want to have a high standard of excellence of how we see ourselves individually, right? I always say this, like, Jesus is the standard. That scares some of us because it's like, man, Jesus was perfect. Like, he was awesome. But yes, he is our standard for us to look at ourselves and say, he's the standard. We were created for the standard, believe it or not. You were created for the standard of Jesus to be great, to be perfect. But we cannot define ourselves whenever we do fall short. We can't define ourselves as sinners. We define ourselves as saints who happen to sin. I'm not going to get into that. But here's the deal. So that's the difference between perfectionism and standard of excellence. And here's what happens as a result of perfectionism. Perfectionism causes procrastination. Well, why does perfectionism cause procrastination? Because oftentimes we won't launch the thing, we won't present the thing, we won't do the thing because we feel like it has to be perfect. And if it's not perfect, I can't really share it to the world. So therefore, if we procrastinate on doing the thing because we oftentimes know it has to be perfect, that's a daunting task. So either we don't start, or either we start and don't finish our launch because we're like, you know what? It's not perfect, so I can't release it. Yeah, and here's what's funny. Something can be not perfect, but still have a high standard of excellence. I'll say that again. It doesn't have to be perfect for you to still have a high standard of excellence, for it to still be great. But in our mind's eye, our perception is, again, any blemish is defined by the blemish, is defined by the mistake. So it causes procrastination, which therefore means it causes us to slow down our results. If we're not doing the behaviors because we feel like it has to be perfect, and we're not doing the behaviors that cause us to get results, well, then it slows down results. And because we have such a critical view of ourselves, because we now are defining ourselves by these little mistakes, we oftentimes now have a critical eye of others, because how we see ourselves will often be reflected in how we see others. So now it compromises relationships because the critical eye that you have of yourself, you now start to view other people out of. So when they don't show up, when they're not perfect, when they're not doing things in your mind's eye of perfect, it can be phenomenal, but there's a little imperfection, critical. I can't believe that person did that. Compromises relationships, causes anxiety. When we don't, when it's not perfect, it gives us, we get anxious, right? In our business or career, if it's not perfect, we get anxious because we feel like it's a reflection of who we are. We're gonna break that down in a little bit. And so, listen, man, I've struggled with this stuff in my life, right? One of the earliest signs of this perfectionism that came out for me was when I played basketball at an early age. I was a great basketball player in the Houston area. 3-year letterman on varsity, a whole nine. I mean, was really good, but I could never get past a certain level of of playing at a really high level, because if I wasn't perfect, I beat myself down. If I missed a layup that I knew I quote unquote should have made, or missed the shot that I should have made, or made any type of mistake, if my game wasn't perfect, how I perceived my game, how I perceived how I played was based on the mistakes and not the wins, not the good parts. Could have had a great game, but I defined my game by the mistakes. Now listen, again, a high standard of excellence says I'm great, but I made some mistakes here and I'm going to look at those and I'm going to fix those because I know how great I really am. I didn't show up great like I could have done. But the perfectionism said, no, I made mistakes. I made these few mistakes and that's who I am. And so I could never get past that hump. Never could get past that hump. And so just ended up kind of becoming a, average basketball player. Same thing in business, years ago, even when I was, launching this podcast and coaching program and, writing my book and stuff like that, like it was like it had to be perfect. It had to be perfect. And I'll touch on this here in a little bit. Part of that is just we're afraid of how other people are going to perceive us. So therefore, we're like, it needs to be perfect. And really deep down, we don't feel like we're good enough. So therefore, it has to be perfect. It has to be perfect. Or else somebody may see that I'm actually making mistakes. Right. And so that's how I thought. I was like, it's got to be perfect. No, it's not ready. Got to tweak it. Got to work on it. Got to work, tinker with it a little more. And it was already good. Right. I needed some accountability for somebody to say, look, you just got to launch that thing, and trust that you are great. It is good. It's okay. And so here is the challenge that we have when it comes to perfectionism is that some people look at it as a good thing. Some people look at it like, oh man, like I got this perfectionism thing. I want things to be perfect. And sometimes outcomes end up being really, really good. Right. Some people will define themselves. Say, I have this, I'm OCD. I got to have things, a certain way and so forth. And it may lead to good outcomes because it's got to be perfect. It may even be perfect. But for the person who's going through that process, it doesn't benefit them. The outcome may look great, right? The report may be extraordinary. The talk that you gave may have been outstanding. The thing that you created may have been may have been perfect or as close to perfect as possible, but it just came at too much of a cost for the person. The other thing is that many people believe, like we talked about before, that just taking imperfect, massive action is the answer. You know what? I might suffer from perfectionism and it's causing me to delay my business or career. Therefore, I'm just going to take this massive imperfect action to try and fix the problem. And that is not the answer to the problem. One, because it's just not sustainable. It's not sustainable to just continue to take massive imperfect action if your underlying problem is actually a perfectionism deal. Again, you can't just implement a method to fix an underlying mindset thing. That means you got to go in and change the roots so that you change the fruit. Right now, the fruit is rooted in anxiety and feeling like you're not good enough, so it has to be perfect. We got to change the root so that now you take massive action without feeling like you're going against yourself, but saying, you know what, I understand why I'm taking massive action now. I'm dealing with this perfectionism issue from a mindset perspective and not just trying to throw a method on top of it to fix it. So here's the reality. And this is the part I want you to listen to. Perfectionism is oftentimes rooted in insecurity and unforgiveness. What do I mean by that? What I walked through my client with when we were talking on our coaching call was, in my past, one of the reasons, I like I said, I struggled from perfectionism, and I realized that the reason it had to be perfect was because really deep down what it was, the real reason I couldn't launch the thing, the real reason why I couldn't get past a certain level of basketball is because deep down, I really felt like I wasn't that good. I really felt like I wasn't that good. And so therefore it had to be perfect in order for it to be acceptable in anyone's eye, including myself, right? I worked hard on the basketball court because I really, at the end of the day, didn't think I was that good, right? Worked so hard sometimes in medical school because I really didn't think I was that good. And so, yes, it turned into hard work, and that's great. It turned into some awesome things, but it just came at too much of it. It came at a cost. So oftentimes it's rooted in insecurity, which is a confidence issue, right? I don't feel like, God forbid, somebody see I made a mistake, because then they may see that I'm the mistake, right? I really see that I'm the mistake. The other part is rooted in is unforgiveness. Because when we do make the mistake, when I would make the mistake, I would dwell on the mistake as opposed to just like, all right, time to get it off of me, right? It's just time to get it off. Like forgive myself. Let's keep going. Short-term memory, missed the shot. Let's go. Short-term memory created a turnover. Let's go. Short-term memory, you know what? I may have made a mistake whenever I spoke on that podcast. I may have made a mistake whenever I did that report. May have made a mistake whenever I even saw the patient. But short-term memory, learn and let's go. Learn and let's go. But not defining myself by not dwelling and defining myself by the mistake. So perfectionism, so that unforgiveness is rooted in condemnation of ourselves. We condemn ourselves for the mistakes that we make. So therefore, perfectionism is more oftentimes than not, rooted in insecurity, because we're insecure, so it has to be perfect. Or unforgiveness, because I can't forgive myself for the mistake that I did make. Confidence is insecurity, and condemnation, unforgiveness. That's what perfectionism is oftentimes rooted in. So therefore, what is the solution? Like, how do we fix this mindset issue if oftentimes perfectionism is rooted in insecurity and unforgiveness? Well, we got to counter that with some mindset things to be able to shift so that we can take action, and not take action because we feel like we're not good enough, but take action because we know we are good enough. Okay. So the solution to counter the confidence issue and the self-condemnation issue is, one, perception of ourselves has to change. We have to work on identity. You've heard me talk about this over and over and over. We have to work on identity, true identity, who we really are, not defined by our mistake, but defined by who God says we are. Not defined by our performance, but defined by the person God says we are, made in his image and likeness, meaning we have the ability to create, right? Meaning we have the ability to do extraordinary things intrinsically already in us, whether you see it or believe it or not. Now, the more you perceive it, the more you will experience it. The more you give it attention and recognition, that greatness and extraordinary awesomeness in you, the more it will express itself. However, even though it's in there, it will lie dormant if we don't give attention to it. So our perception of ourselves has to become more in alignment with the truth. And what that does is that counters the insecurity, because the insecurity says, I don't think I'm really good enough. So I'm gonna have to have it be perfect to prove to myself that it's good enough and that I'm good enough, and to other people that it is. No, now you say, you know what? I know I'm great. I know I'm extraordinary. Therefore, I do extraordinary things. Therefore, I put in work because I am great, because I am made in the image and likeness of the greatest ever, because I am his son or daughter with inherited traits, created for the standard like Jesus, right? So that's one aspect of it, perception. The other part is pardon. We got to pardon ourselves. We have to forgive ourselves. We have to let it go. We have to literally say, you know what? I know it was a mistake, but I'm not defined by the mistake. I'm not defined by the mistake. Who I really am is made perfect, holy, righteous, excellent. That's who I am. Sometimes I will make a mistake, but because I'm able to forgive myself, really and truly, because I've been able to receive the forgiveness of sins, receive that, I can let it go and get back to the awesome person I have been designed to be sooner rather than later. So the solution to the confidence / insecurity and the condemnation / unforgiveness of perfectionism is perception, working on our identity of ourselves, and pardon of ourselves, forgiveness. And here's what's cool about this: as I recognized this mindset piece of perfectionism that needed to shift, here's what happened. I began to move faster. I began to be able to get on this podcast and just click go instead of wondering, did I do this right? Is this going to be right? How are people going to see it? What's happening? Like just getting past all that mental block and hit go, click, record, go, live, and just helps me to move because I come from a position of I'm great. If a mistake happens, that's okay. Guess what? We can still work on it, right? We can still work on it. And yes, that is imperfect action, but it's not rooted in anxiety and insecurity now. It's rooted in greatness and awesomeness. Okay. So move faster, move quicker, faster results, right? And because I don't have that critical eye, listen to me, because I don't have that critical eye of myself nearly as much anymore, because I don't see myself having to be perfect in order to be worthy. Now, when I look at other people, my wife, my children, my coworkers, people I'm partnering with, they don't have to be perfect in order for me to have a quality relationship. I hold them to a high standard. Yes, right? Hold them to a high standard of excellence because I know how great they are, right? Hold them to a high standard of excellence because I know how great they are, but I don't condemn them when they do make a mistake. Therefore, it's caused me to be a better leader now. I'm a better leader. I can lead people. I can lead my home. I can lead my workplace. I can lead new projects because of this. Better leader, better relationships. And this is what you'll experience. You'll be able to move quicker, move faster, course correct, put things out there and then work on them. Take the imperfect action without getting all of the mess that comes with it, without the anxiety. You'll be able to forgive others sooner. Be a better leader, husband, spouse, right? So I want you to imagine what it would feel like to be able to just take action. I want you to imagine what it would feel like to be able to say, you know what, this is what I want. I'm going to just start taking action toward it because I know even if a mistake is made, I'm not defined by it. But I know greatness is expected. Greatness is intrinsically there and it shall come forth because I know I am. And now that I'm giving attention to that which is the truth of who I am from an identity perspective, and the fact that I've forgiven myself anytime I have made a mistake, you can just move quickly achieve goals faster, lead people better, and feel a sense of freedom from the stronghold of perfectionism, preventing your progress in your health, in your wealth, in your relationships. Imagine what that would feel like. But here's the deal, it's going to be rooted in you having a different perception of yourself and your identity, and pardoning yourself from the mistakes that you've made. All right, you guys, listen, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure. Make sure you share this with somebody, because I don't care. We got, there's levels to this. There's people who got levels to different, to perfectionism. I mean, some people have a lot of it. Some people have little of it. All of us have a little bit of it to some degree, at least. Share this with somebody who you believe this can help. And again, just to remind you, June 21st, right? If you're listening to this before June 21st, make sure you register for the masterclass. Masterclass for men that I'm hosting on June 21st. 2-hour masterclass called The Formula for Breakthrough and Accelerated Growth, talking about the 3 common behaviors that prevent men from being able to win in their health, wealth, and relationships, and giving you the formula to have accelerated growth and breakthrough in your life. 2-hour masterclass. I'm going to be giving you part of the curriculum. I'm going to be coaching you. It's going to be a great community of guys, but there's limited seats available. Go to drbradmd.com/masterclass to register for that masterclass. Hope you guys have a beautiful week, and I will see you guys next week. Peace.